right, so today we're gonna knock out the wall locker. I've got the last bit of material that I needed for it. It was two more 3/3/4 inch 4x8 sheets of plywood, a 1/4 inch 4x8 sheet of plywood, and then 4 more hinges, since you need to use 2 hinges per door on this one because of the size and the overall weight. It tells you all that on the Hinge documentation. So anyways, we're gonna get that knocked out. We're gonna start by breaking down these sheet goods with the track saw, probably use the table saw a little bit, and then start assembly. Okay, so I've done this so many times, and really I'm only stopping to explain it because I realized that this wall locker cabinet build is kind of like an all-in-one cabinet build, and a really big cabinet. I take it from breaking down the sheet goods all the way to mounting it on the wall. So it's a pretty good all-in-one. And in that, we're gonna cut dados with both the router and then the table saw. You just saw me cut a French cleat, which I didn't narrate through, but there are plenty of videos of me showing this in this series even, so I'll link them on the screen now, you can check them out. But for now, I will walk you through, once again, cutting a dado. So we're cutting a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch deep dado into our 3/4 inch ply. So I have these nice setup blocks. I'll link them in the description. They're affiliate links to Amazon, but they're the cheaper versions, not the really expensive Craig versions, and I think they work just the same. So you find the highest tooth blade, or highest blade tooth on your saw, and you lower it down until you get just about even with the top of your setup block, and then boom, there you have it. You have your table saw set to cutting a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch dado, and we'll go over how to cut that 1/4 inch thickness. The only other thing about cutting a dado with your table saw is you want to remove the riving knife, because the riving knife sits above the table saw blade to split the wood as you push it through, so that there's not that undue pressure that creates tension and will push the piece back at you. But for cutting dados, you don't need that protection. So remove that riving knife, because it would lift the piece off of the blade as you're cutting through, and it wouldn't give you that consistent thickness or depth of a dado. All right. Okay, so the next step, and just note that I'm using all scrap wood here, not the actual piece, but you could use the actual piece, is I'm going to find a nice clean corner, which is going to be this one here, even though it's not a straight cut. That'll be okay. All right, so I know that I need to set my 1/4 inch dado about 3/4, the width of my plywood essentially, back from the edge of the piece. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that first. I'm going to mark it. All right, then I'm going to take my square. I'm going to mark just on the inside. All right, and know that I need to cut this way. So that's important, so just go ahead and scribble like you would any other cut to make sure you know which way you're cutting. I know where I'm cutting. Okay, then I'm going to take my off-cut scrap 1/4 inch plywood. So this is exactly as wide as the plywood that I'm using. Put it on that edge, then I'm going to mark again. So now I've got my 1/4 inch thickness, and I'm going to go ahead and take my square one more time. Okay, so I know exactly where I want to cut. So I'm going to take it over to the table saw, and I'm going to bring it over to my first cut. And if you have a table saw blade like mine with alternating teeth, you want to make sure that you're resting or you're measuring with the tooth that's inside towards the fence, not outside towards the outside of the table, because that's what's going to cut that line. So right there. Lock that in place, and now this is set up for me to run my piece through, and you'll see once I cut it how you adjust it to widen it for the 1/4 inch, since this is only about an 1/8 inch thick. Okay, and now before we finish our last dado setup, we're gonna go ahead and talk about how to cut dados the second way we'll do it this video, which is with a router. Now let me just say, I'm using a track saw track, a fancy adapter to cut a straight edge, and then a plunge router and a big plunge router, a 2.5 quarter horsepower one. I will always recommend the best tool for the job. This is it. But it's not the only tool. You can use a trim router. You don't need a track saw. You can use anything that will keep a straight edge, a nice straight piece of wood, a Bora edge clamp, all kinds of other things. So just keep that in mind. But for me, I'm gonna go ahead and plunge this down. I'm gonna actually set my depth at the same time that I do this. So I'm gonna loosen this guy up, plunge it down until it hits the wood, lock that, boom. I've got my thickness of my piece locked in. And then I'm gonna take my router with my 3/4 inch straight bit, since I'm cutting a 3/4 inch dado, and I'm gonna put the edge right on the line. All right, so now that I've got that marked, I'm gonna take my pencil, I'm gonna mark where I need that guy to line up, the track. So I know, and I'll link this adapter in the description in case you want to pick one up. It'll be non-affiliate, but it's made for the DeWalt router and the DeWalt track, although it is adaptable to a Porter cable router. Anyways, all right, and I just do this to give the edges or the track some support on these outer edges here. I put a cut off piece of 3/4 inch that I have laying around that gives it nice support. So, and I've got my piece clamped down so it's not going anywhere, and I've got my track clamped down so it's not going anywhere. I'm just gonna do this once because it's super messy and it's a pain. I just wanna rip through them. I gotta do 6 on each board because I'm putting 6 shelves into the Carcass. So anyways, this is how you set it up. And then I do it in 2 passes, so I'm cutting a 1/2 inch deep dado that's 3/4 inches wide. And even with this big beefy of a router and router bit, you never want to, you know, tax your router too much. So I take a 1/4 inch pass at a time, which is still a good bit. This router can definitely handle it. If you're using a trim router, I'd say like an 1/8 of an inch pass. Let's go ahead and cut. All right, so now it's time to adjust for the next part of our dado cut, which will finish the channel. So you just stick your blade back in there, or your test piece, lock your fence, and then this time you're gonna scoot it so that, okay, so you gotta now find the tooth that's facing the farthest out. Lock that in good and tight, and we'll cut our first piece, test it out. Okay, so we got these things all dadoed out, essentially. Got all our dados for our shells and then the dado for the back piece. Now, if you weren't adding a back piece, you don't have to do that. But anyways, here we're there. What I want to mention before I just get into a time lapse of me assembling this thing, because it's pretty simple to assemble, is that your 2 side pieces have to be book matched. So if you're unfamiliar with that term, imagine a book, you open it, and they kind of open, they reflect each other from the spine out. And so if this is what we're calling the spine in between these 2/4 inch dados, you can see these 2 pieces are book matched. And that's because when I stand them up, the dados need to match each other, be both on the back. If all of your shelf dados were exactly the same and spaced equally, it wouldn't really matter because you could swing the pieces around, whatever. But because mine are not spaced equally, you can like see here and here that the 2 shelves are closer together than these 2. I had to pay attention to that, and most of the times you will, so just, you gotta have them book matched. All right, but I'm gonna go ahead and time lapse through putting this thing together. right, I'm gonna do something I think a little unorthodox here. I've never seen it done this way, but just because I haven't seen it done this way doesn't mean that it's not a normal way to do it. So for the face frames for the cabinets, and for pretty much every other face frame I've ever built, I've assembled the face frame standalone on an assembly table, pocket holed it together, everything like that, and then overlaid it onto the carcass and Brad nailed it in place with some glue. This frame is a little bit big for my assembly table. I could do it, I think. I just kind of don't want to. Um, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, I think I can just brad nail each one of these pieces into the carcass individually. So we're going to try that. It could blow up. We'll see. Okay, I hope I recorded that. But anyways, so tested the theory, fortunately on shop furniture, and let me tell you, I know why I've never seen it before. Some say it doesn't really work. This side's not as bad. The other side's much worse. But since my shelves don't sit flush with the edge of the side piece, which like I oftentimes will recommend not making all your cuts ahead of time unless I think they're safe cuts. I thought these were safe cuts, so that you can take actual measurements. So what that would have meant for me was like putting the carcass together with the top and the bottom, and then sliding in the back piece, and then taking the measurement from the back piece to the top of the side piece, and then that would give me the measurement for the width of my, or the length, sorry, of my shelf. It's a lot of words. Essentially, that would have brought the everything even. So when I put the face frame together, it would have sat even and flush. The benefit to doing it on an assembly table and using pocket hole screws and all that is you get the face flush, and then, I mean, yeah, then it looks cohesive. So mine doesn't, but again, I don't really care. And most of it is like these two, the ones that are really the worst. They're not even, the doors cover them. So really no sweat. But that's what we're going to do next. We're going to make the doors. Okay, so as I finished installing these hinges, if you watch the first couple of these videos where I started on the shop cabinets, I admitted that I had never done a hinged door really before, not properly anyways, and definitely not with these Euro hinges that you kind of see everybody using, and then you'll see them in your like kitchen if you use, if you look and you have a newer built house. Anyways, but there's really no need to be. I picked up this Craig jig, cost maybe $30. And you can use it for multiple different types of hinges. Just read your hinge hardware instructions. It'll tell you how to set up this jig properly. And really any jig, so not the Craig one, that Miles Craft makes one. I'll link a bunch of them down in the description. And really, it's pretty simple. So don't be intimidated. I waited a long time to do it. You don't need to. Hinges, that means that needs to overhang my face frame by half inch. All right, the last thing we're going to do for today, not for the video, is attach the French cleat system. Yeah, pretty simple. All right, and if you'll notice, I actually, on this cabinet, have two instead of just one French cleat. For all the base cabinets, I had one French cleat. For the cubbies, I did. I think this one's gonna be a little too heavy with the material itself plus whatever I put in there. So for extra measures, I'm putting in two French cleats. All right, so the French cleats are on there, no problem. Anytime you add two of something, three of something, four, whatever you kind of add to the complexity, I think exponentially, really. Like before, I had to make sure that I got the bottom half of the cleat lined up kind of perfectly so that it would fit, right? Because this is a pretty tight gap. I could make the cleat smaller and that would actually probably solve a lot of my issues. And that's what I'll do if for some reason I can't get it onto the wall. Here nor there, that's a problem for tomorrow, me. But like now, not only do I have to get this one lined up perfectly, I have to get this one lined up perfectly. So it's gonna be really difficult to do. A little anxious about it, but I mean, whatever. We'll give it a shot. And then, like I said, I can always shorten these by like an inch, and that gives me a lot more room to play with. So I think I can fix it, and it doesn't really take away from the structural stability of it. So that'll be fun. All right, so before we go ahead and mount this thing to the wall, what we have to do is we attach the bottom of our French cleat to the part that the top half will hang on to the wall. As I said, it's a little bit more complex with the wall locker because I have two French cleats. The process is the same for one, and now you get to see what it looks like if you have two. So what I went ahead and did was I sandwiched the cleat together so that on the back of the cabinet there, so that it looked like one 6-inch brace before I had cut it, right? As it would hang, essentially. And I measured from the bottom of the cabinet up to the bottom of the cleat, and that gave me the distance that the bottom of this cleat needs to rest at so that I can mount it to the wall so that when the wall cabinet comes down on top of it, it'll rest exactly where I want it to. So I took that measurement and I measured from the bottom of my drywall up. And like I said, that's how you line it up with the back of the cabinet. I did the same thing from the bottom of the cabinet up to the bottom of the top cleat and then just repeated it up higher. Next, I took my 1/4-inch cutoff, or 3/4-inch cutoff that I'm using for spacing because of the sidewall thickness of my cabinet, and I marked a line. I came up with my tape and I came up to the bottom of the cleat distance, and that gave me an intersection for me to put a corner for the cleat. Next thing I did is I took a stud finder, ran it along the wall till I found my studs in the wall here, came back with the bottom of my cleat, packed it snug right against my intersection, and I had taken a level and run, I had taken a level and run a mark to the end of the level, making sure that it was still level so that I have 2 points to put my cleat against so that I know it's level, and I'll use a level when I actually do it. And then I came and I transcribed where the studs were at, and you'll see why I did that in just a second. All right, and so remember that because I'm using these French cleats and I have them inset into the back of the cabinet, I need everything to lay flush. So I'm mounting these cleats to the wall with lag screws right into the stud because that'll give me the most strength. But if I didn't do what I'm about to do, it wouldn't sit flush. So to make it sit flush, I take the spade bit, it's about 1 inch, you could do less, and I drill down about 1/8 of an inch, maybe 1/4 of an inch down into the cleat, so it gives a spot for that lag screw to recess once I put it into the wall. So let's go ahead and take care of that. Okay, now the final step is we just come back with our cleat, line it all up again, and we just mark in there where the holes are. All right, now you just pre-drill your holes. All right, I have this neat little attachment for my impact driver. You definitely don't need it. You can do it with just your standard socket wrench, but essentially it's an adapter to allow me to use my impact wrench driver with sockets. All right, I'm gonna try to mount this. No idea if I can actually do this by myself, so let's see. All right, so we're done. Finally done. I know you guys just like a second ago saw me wrestling with that wall locker. I don't know how much I caught on camera because I haven't done the post edit yet, but I ended up having to take this whole cabinet down. The wall not being level, drywallers got me again. So I had to take this whole cabinet off because that was like perfectly just tight enough to fit into that space. But you kind of had to like shimmy it in there, and that was just too much of a bear for me to shimmy by myself. So I took this cabinet down, pegboard, all of that came off so that I could shimmy that into place, lift it, boom, set it down, and then we reinstalled this one. So everything fit really well. I mean, it's tight as a glove. Everything's really level across the top. I'm super pumped with how it turned out. And I went ahead off camera and obviously organized everything, filled up my wall locker, the drawers and cabinets, and there's still a lot of leftover space for things to come in the future. And I got that back wall all cleaned up, so now there's nothing sitting on top of the drum sander and the jointer. They're not used for extra space, they're actual tools, so that's really cool. So all in all, guys, we're done. I really hope you enjoyed this video. It was kind of like a all-in-one how to build a really big cabinet, and if you can build that cabinet, you can build this cabinet, the smaller base cabinets. As always, if you want me to release the plans and like cut sheets for this specific cabinet so that you can scale or whatnot on your own, I'm totally willing to do it. Just let me know and I'll put the effort in and I'll release those. I'll add it to the description as a Google Drive link. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching. As always, this has been 5 o'clock Woodshop. Stay tuned for more. Things are about to get really exciting. Like, subscribe, comment, and share. I'm out.